You're listening to Fulfilling Career, Happy Life, the podcast for accomplished professionals who want to identify what's next in their career and make it happen without compromising what matters most. I'm your host, Randi Roberts, an executive and career life coach, and I'm glad you're here. If you want to feel more energized about your work again, this show is for you. So let's get into it. So thanks for joining. My guest today is Jim. He is a client of mine. We've worked together for several years now. He has an impressive career in the pharmaceutical industry on the commercial side, particularly in marketing, sales, leadership roles, second line leader type roles. So dealing with some pretty complex issues, both on a strategy side, but also a people development side. But what we're going to focus on today is his own interests and his own level of career satisfaction. And in particular, the two pillars that we're going to focus on today are growth and contentment. So, Jim, thanks so much for joining me today.
No problem, Randi. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's start with growth. I mean, knowing you for a couple of years, I know how important that is to you, but please tell me why that was important to you. Why was that a pillar you selected as one that you wanted to focus on?
Every role I've had, it seems like I aspire to more responsibility and more opportunity to make impact in the organization that I'm working in, or for patients' lives, or for my team's lives. And the leaders I've looked up to have all grown as well within their organizations and taken on more and more responsibility. And that's something I aspire to. Growth to me means constantly getting better, challenging myself, looking at new opportunities in different ways, taking on opportunities that I probably wouldn't have in the past as I grow with more experience, and willing to put myself out there a little bit more for that growth to help shape my career.
Great. That makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing you say is primarily it's about you taking on challenges, leaning into new opportunities, and maybe even the hard stuff with an intentional eye or purposeful eye towards growing. Okay, so share with me, where did you assess your score on a scale of 1 to 10? 10's practically perfect. 1 is completely dissatisfied on the growth dimension.
I give myself an 8 on the growth dimension. And for my current role, mainly, and then looking back at what I've done really in the last, since my time with you, and then in the last 4 or 5 years of my career, my growth, at least in responsibility and impact, have substantially grown role over role. And so that's why I gave myself the number I did.
Okay, great. I mean, so what I'm hearing you say is growth is very important to you, and you're getting much of what you need at this point. You're feeling stretched, you're feeling growth. Does 8 feel good to you? Does that feel like where you should be? Okay.
I would like to say it's perfect, but I just know that part of the growth is role focused. When you aspire to a different role and you get promoted into role, the growth comes inherently with the role. But also when a supervisor leaves, you're thrust into having you're looking at things from their lens as well, and growing in terms of the elevation in which you're looking at things. And I've had that in my current role when my supervisor left. So now I'm in direct contact with our general manager and looking at things in a different lens. And it's forcing me to grow perhaps sooner than perhaps the normal track would have been in this role. So, and when you take on roles with more responsibility, you're open to more different aspects of the organization. If it's finance, production, everything that goes into the commercial organization, you have to learn more about that to become a better leader, to become more knowledgeable about it. So the growth is somewhat, I don't want to say forced, but it's ingrained. And then some of it is some of my own doing as well, too.
Got it. Yeah, I think you're making an interesting point, because even when we put ourselves in a situation where we're getting the right amount of growth and we're where we want to be there and moving at our own pace, sometimes circumstances come up to do you the great favor of stretching you more than you expected. So good for you for taking that on as the opportunity that it can be.
Well, I think it's through your help and just discussion with mentors and coaches. It's to see that sometimes where you're like, oh my goodness, what am I getting into? Or how, and to look at it in that frame of like, this is a learning opportunity, this is a growth opportunity, and how you handle it and how you lead through it and grow through it can set you up for further growth down the road, or further responsibility, or as a teachable lesson down the road to fall back on as well, for either your own development or others' development as well. So you just kind of keep them in the bank in your Rolodex per se of experiences to grow on further, or help others grow further.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah. So it sounds to me like you're in a really good place on growth. It's important to you. You're getting what you need. You foresee that in the near-term future. So is it correct to say that this one is kind of like an area of satisfaction for you, not an area that you need to actively focus on to improve?
I'd say somewhat satisfied, very satisfied, but I always want to improve. So if in a year the growth isn't there, I'll probably not get antsy, but I'll look for more things. If I'll raise my hand for more things, or if I know where I'm trying to grow one aspect in, let's say, in understanding the manufacturing process as an example, and then, okay, I feel good about that. Now, if I point to somewhere when I'm going to go further in my career, I might want to learn more about the finance operations and the dollars coming into the organization, dollars going out. I might seek opportunities to grow there, the mentorship with our finance head, or seek that way. But currently right now, I'm happy, but I constantly need growth because I don't want to get stale, or, industries are rapidly evolving. Look what COVID did a couple of years ago to everything. If you're not growing, you're gonna wither. And I don't want that for either my career or for my team or for any organization I work in. I don't want to be in a stagnant organization. I want to be in a growing organization.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because what it really reminds me, and for my listeners, even if you are satisfied on a particular pillar, which is amazing, let's appreciate that, but it's something not to turn your back on, because that can change if you're not paying attention to it and making sure you're keeping that situation right for yourself. So thank you for that.
And thank you. And by design, or maybe not, it's interesting how all the pillars blend together, right? If I look at fun, some people might not see challenge as fun, or balance as fun. I think you have to have fun to have balance. And so it's amazing, just in our discussion and looking at this in preparation, how they all tie together. But you can have parts that are lower to flex up, but if you go with what's important to your gut and what you see in your career, everything else will follow as well. Yeah,
I agree. There's definitely ties there. So let's shift over to contentment. That was the other pillar that we were going to talk about today. And this is kind of an interesting one, because as I've started to work with it a little bit more, there are, it's an onion. There are layers that I didn't necessarily expect. So if you would tell me what it means to you, tell me what contentment in your career means.
Contentment in my career means, at any given stage or any different role or a stage within a role, is I'm very happy and fulfilled with either what I'm doing for the organization, what I'm doing for my team. And if I go home and look at myself in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth and I say, I had a really good day. I either impacted patients' lives, I helped develop someone on my team, we hit a goal, we had a win, we hit our sales numbers, whatever it is, I know that I gave my all, and I feel really good with what I did and how I did it. Is contentment to me.
Great. That's great. So it's very focused on sort of your day-to-day contributions and knowing that you're delivering on your promise, if you will.
Delivering on the promise, but also looking out ahead that what I'm doing today is guiding what's happening in the future. And if I'm content where, like we just talked about in terms of growth, if I'm content where the company is going, where my team is going, growth-wise, and this is how it all interrelates. And I'm content too with my day-to-day helping to achieve that goal, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So,
great. So where did you score yourself on contentment, Jim?
Contentment was a 9.
9. Wow.
Yeah.
Great. And so, of all the things we talked about with growth being so strong, contentment is even more satisfied. So what can you do to build on that even further? Would there be advantages to you leaning in on that even more?
Sure. I think if, trying to find what makes me content is and if there's a lever that can be pulled there, if it's, development of my team, or if I know perhaps there's an opportunity to stretch them and we need some resources to help them, then I can lean on that and get that contentment, knowing that I'm helping others grow. If I'm not contented, then I will look to feel and to actively change them. So the contentment is fluctuating. You can have good days and bad days, but I think contentment guides you and helps normalize those days as well too. Mm-hmm. Never too high, never too low. Your baseline is I'm doing the right thing for my team. I'm doing the right thing for my patients. I'm doing the right thing for my organization, and I'm doing the right thing for me and my family. So if all those come together, then that's great. And that's my guidepost. If something falls out of whack, where there's some pressure in the organization on something that doesn't feel right, and that pulls me down in contentment, what am I going to do to help bring that back up? And what are those levers that can be, and what are the reasons for that can maybe challenge me with my growth or the fun or the connections or whatnot to help guide that up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, what I'm hearing you say is it's important for you to know yourself, to know what environment creates that contentment for you. Make sure you're filling that bucket, and almost describing sort of a steady state or like a stable place from which to make decisions, move forward, absorb shocks, even those kinds of things. Does that right? Does that fit?
Yes. It absolutely. I don't think it's up to an organization or outside factors to drive contentment. It's an internal feeling for me, and having that steady state, just like, oh, hey, you know what? Had a rough day. This decision didn't go right, or didn't get that resource, but I know overall I'm in the right spot. I'm in the right role. I feel good about everything going on. My team is solid. I've got star players around me that are growing and developing. I can get through anything, and my team can help me get through anything. And it's a very internal looking for contentment for me. Yes, very internally focused to drive my contentment.
Well, I hear a lot of confidence in that.
Yes. Yeah. I've been in the industry. I'm no spring chicken, but I've been in the industry 25 years. I've seen different parts of each organization, different leaders. I know with all those leaderships opportunities and the leaders that expose me to different roles and different challenges and different growth opportunities, where I feel good and where I feel energized, and after reflection, what energizes me in the role. And I'm in that role right now, and I want to continue. And I know what to look for in case of any future opportunities that come out as well.
That's wonderful. I mean, having worked together for a couple of years, I know you have varied a little bit on the contentment scale, given the other dynamics and things. And it's really, really wonderful to see you in such a good place. I'm very happy to hear it.
Well, and I think that guides you, right? That in that contentment piece, knowing what drives that, knowing what that baseline is at steady state, in case there's changes in an organization, layoffs or new opportunities that come through, that's my guidepost. And that's what helps guide my search process. If I were to be looking, or someone comes calling, or investigating other opportunities of different organizations, I can use that as my framework to then launch into something wholeheartedly.
That's great. I mean, there's so many things you can't control. You're really focused on the things you can. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on growth and contentment. I appreciate it so much. Thanks so much for listening to Fulfilling Career Happy Life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Do all the things to show your support for this podcast. It helps other professionals who want to feel more energized about their work again find us. And if you want to take this thinking further, please follow me on LinkedIn, where I share content on a regular basis. You can also get on my email list by downloading the Career Satisfaction Assessment or through my website. All these links are in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. I truly appreciate that you make the time for yourself to listen to the show. See you next week.